Sequels are somewhat inevitable in Hollywood. If executives see they have a good, new and refreshing idea, it won't take them long to try to put together a cinematic universe that will fail after the second movie. I mean, ultimately, we reside in a world where the success of the Barbie film signifies that we will witness a film of one for some unspecified reason. However, there are numerous movies that, despite being incredible, stayed just as they were, including a number of films that appeared genuinely deserving of a sequel, such as District 9, World War Z, or, more importantly for us, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Released in 1971, who wouldn't want to see more of this crazy and colorful world? The sequel is already written in the form of a story by its original author called Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. However, recently, this legendary story of a boy winning a factory, eliminating all his opponents in the cruelest battle royale in history, has turned into one of the strangest overexploited franchises in cinema. It has a remake by Tim Burton that caused nightmares to children around the world. It has a strange readaptation where the same story as the original is told, but now Tom and Jerry are there for some reason. And there is even a prequel where they try to tell the origin story of the most eccentric chocolatier in the universe, and I'm sure no one asked for. However, there is another film that is not just one of the most brutal and dark underrated gems of cinema, but it also contains numerous similarities to the story of the Chocolate Factory, which has led many to believe that it is in fact a perfect sequel to the original movie. Snowpiercer is a film that was released in 2013 and directed by Bong Joon-ho, who is currently well known for directing Parasite. In this film, we follow Chris Evans and a group of survivors in a world where, due to global warming and a chemical spread in the atmosphere that ended up killing most of humanity in a new ice age, people are forced to live on Wilford's Snowpiercer, a high-speed train that travels through a frozen world covered in ice and snow. Within this is essentially the remaining part of the human race, separated into two categories, the lower and the upper, all residing under the control of an enigmatic billionaire solely identified as Mr. Wilford. Tired of their terrible quality of life, they decide to revolt when they realize resources are running out and slowly move through the train cars while a killer reduces their numbers. Now, this sounds very different from the Willy Wonka movie, but that's because you probably haven't seen Snowpiercer. With this in mind, the first suspicious similarity is that we can say that both are movies about groups of people gradually exploring different sections of a huge fantastical structure to better understand their creator. Yes, because at the end of the train is where the boss is, who uses a giant W as a logo in everything he does, but I'm getting ahead of myself a bit. Upon closer examination, it becomes apparent that both the train and the chocolate factory are more similar than they initially appear. Both have a great interest in developing food, with Wonka creating new sweets and consumables that can cause different physical effects. And in Snowpiercer, they produce protein bars designed to keep people alive. And not only that, there is also a curious interest in highly advanced transportation systems, with Wonka and his boat on the chocolate river and his magical glass elevator that could take you anywhere, and with Snowpiercer's miraculous train that will save humanity and that even its inhabitants see as a religious figure. Like many of the theories in this chocolatey movie, in this case, it seems that they were based on the original version to make the sequel and not on the remake done by Tim Burton. But how do we know this? Well, it is thanks to Slugworth. This is a character that appears in the original Chocolate Factory movie, where he is introduced to the children as a double agent attempting to steal the candy formula, only to reveal that all this time he was collaborating with Wonka to test the children, even having a complete scene where the deception is exposed and his true intentions are unveiled. This is quite similar to the way in which, at the conclusion of the film, Mr. Wilford discloses that the individual we encountered at the start of the film, who orchestrated the uprising and all the occurrences in Snowpiercer, had consistently been operating as a spy for Wilford. And looking at it closely, it could even pass as an older version of the original Slow World, right? However, this isn't Wilford's only ally. Throughout the story, we get to know quite curious characters. An unstoppable, almost superhuman killer who chases the group on the train despite his age. A woman known as Minister Mason, who has a strong character and not only helps maintain order in the lower class, but also seems to have a strange fanaticism towards Wilford. And there is even a strange woman about whom we know almost nothing, but who has a peculiar detail. It's not just about a person who is unable to control their impulses, but at one point in the movie we can see them consuming their own blood. Now, this might sound not so surprising until we take into consideration that they appear to be characters we were familiar with from the original Chocolate Factory film. For example, in that movie, there's Mike TV, a boy with very violent tendencies and a love for guns who dreamed of being a cowboy and was capable of paying attention to the smallest details, like the killer in Snowpiercer. On the other hand, we have Veruca Salt. She used to wear fur coats very similar to Minister Mason's, and although they look a lot alike physically, in the movie Mason is the complete opposite of Veruca, as she praises Wilford and treats him almost like a god. But let's remember that Veruca went through a traumatic event inside the factory, and after carrying the trash, as a consequence of being spoiled, conceited and ungrateful, it seems she almost dies incinerated. So he may have taken that choice excessively to heart, transforming all his trauma into extreme dedication. There is even Augustus Gloop, a boy who not only consumed large quantities of food but also in the process experienced his own downfall and bears a striking resemblance to the woman who consumes her own blood, exhibiting a similarity that is too significant to be ignored. If you haven't seen the movie, all of this will sound extremely forced, but if you have already watched it, you'll know that I haven't talked about one of the most suspicious elements, the conductor, that strange individual everyone calls Wilford and who plays giant WS throughout the entire train. It almost sounds like I'm gonna say he's Willy Wonka, doesn't it? Yes, nearly. However, the ages do not align, as Wonka would be excessively old for the future depicted in Snowpiercer. No, what the theory dictates is that it's actually the child who starred in the chocolate factory, the successor to Willy Wonka, Charlie Bucket. At the end of the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Charlie inherits the factory and is on his way to becoming Wonka's successor, which would prepare him for the next apocalypse. During the 1971 movie, we see that Charlie is quite good in his chemistry classes. And there is a strange emphasis on the topic of percentages, something important in Snowpiercer, where life inside the train is constantly governed by population percentages and mass sacrifices. Years after the film's events, when the atmosphere is sprayed with CW gas and the environmental disaster of 2014 occurs, nearly all life on the planet is eradicated. Charlie would be one of the few people with the resources and the knowledge to do something about it. Because of this, he decides to create the train, or as they know it, the Dreamliner. A man who not only doesn't raise suspicion as being an ark for humanity, but could even pass as another strange product from the Wonka line. But there is a huge inconsistency. Why is it named Wilford and not Charlie? Well, based on the theory, Charlie makes the decision to modify his name as a tribute to his teacher. In the end, Willy is simply a shortened form of the name Wilford, not Wilford Wonka, the proprietor and inventor of the Dreamliner, who is actually referred to as Willy, although that minor detail had gone unnoticed by everyone. Now, that's not the only thing that connects Wonka's successor to Wilford. The train's design itself reminds us of the chocolate factory and Wonka's design philosophy. The most lavish parts of the Dreamliner have unique concepts that would fit perfectly in a factory, like an aquarium car, a luxurious restaurant, or a greenhouse. And if that wasn't sufficient, Wilford was also searching for a successor. Yes, at the end of the movie, Wilford tells the protagonist that since he is the only one to reach the engine of the train, he will now become the new conductor. No one would know the effectiveness of this strategy better than Charlie, the only person who survived unscathed from the original journey and even took Willy Wonka's idea of hiding messages inside food. However, maybe the most compelling evidence is this scene at the conclusion of the film, which elucidates why they require children to maintain the engine operational. Kindly give your attention.
The available space is only adequate for individuals of a very small size, specifically young children who are under the age of 5 years old. The engine has an extremely long lifespan, but not all of its components do. Recently, a part of the team became extinct.
That is a highly unusual choice of words. That specific piece of equipment has recently become extinct, which is something they absolutely must replace with children. That is the answer to one of the biggest questions in this theory. If this is indeed a sequel to Willy Wonka, the absence of the Oompa Loompas raises a significant inquiry about their whereabouts. Are they deceased? Extinct? In the 1971 film, we can clearly see that all of Wonka's transportation vehicles were operated by Oompa Loompas, and it is quite evident that the Dreamliner was definitely not an exception to this. However, this new ice age eradicated the Oompa Loompas, who originate from highly warm climates. Thus, Wilford was compelled to set the train in motion, utilizing the alternative that was closest at hand to maintain the engine's operation. Children, it is an unrefined and peculiar theory, but astonishingly, it aligns perfectly, does it not? Perhaps some parts fit better than others, but it definitely seems like at least a large part of this was intentional. And I didn't even mention other small details like the main musical themes of both movies being very similar, and other tiny Easter eggs that point to that classic 1971 movie about chocolates and Oompa Loompas. All credits for the creation of this theory go to the Rhinos Dos channel in English, who has actually just released a huge part 2 that expands on all of this and serves as an excellent documentary on the creation of both movies and their relationship with this impressive theory. I invite you to go watch it, and if you like this video, give it a like and subscribe to see more content like this, and don't forget to brush your teeth and not eat too much candy. Goodbye, it.